The auction platform creaked beneath their bare feet. Two small figures stood motionless, center stage. Sackcloth sacks, coarse, sun-bleached, cinched at the neck, hid their faces from the world. Only the yellow hem of a little girl's prairie dress gave color to the silence. Her tiny fists clutched the edge of the platform as if it might float away. The taller one, a boy by the thin legs and the stubborn stillness, stood beside her with a stiff posture of someone who'd already learned how not to cry. No one in the crowd said a word. Not yet. Just boots shifting in dirt and the clink of coin purses against belt buckles. Somewhere behind them, a horse stamped. A fly landed on the sheriff's lip. He didn't swat it, just flicked the reins of his voice. Pair of young UNS. No name, no kin, no talk. Cleaned him up far as we could without talking the sacks off. Spooked like wild cats. Anyone wanna take him? Still no one moved. The girl spoke. Voice cracked like dry kindling. She didn't lift her head, didn't even seem to breathe between words. We won't ask for bread, she whispered. Just buy us. A few gasps rose like dust. A woman pressed her palm to her chest. A man chuckled unkindly, muttering, well trained already. Another scoffed, probably cursed. Or stolen. The sheriff squinted into the crowd. $3 the pair. They don't eat much. A breeze stirred the sacks like veils at a funeral. Still no takers. It was then that the townsfolk turned. Not from pity, not from guilt, but because the sound of a single rain snap silenced even the horses. She had arrived. Calla Mae Dalton rode a paint mare with mud on its knees. No saddle horn ornaments. No fine stitching on her duster. Just a woman alone in the middle of her 20s, wearing the same boots she buried her brother in. Her hair was braided plain. Her hands rested easy on the reins, but her eyes held the weather. They all knew her. The quiet rancher who took the southern ridge after her folks died. Never took a husband, never stayed for socials. They whispered she was half feral, or broken, or too proud. She didn't dismount. Miss Dalton, the sheriff called with an edge of amusement. Ain't got no heifers today, but these two ain't bad stock. Calla didn't answer. Her gaze rested on the little girl's yellow hem. The way it curled around her ankle like she was trying not to be seen. The silence that followed wasn't loud, but it felt full. Finally, Calla swung down from the horse. She walked toward the platform like she didn't care if the whole town watched. Her boots thudded dully against the wooden boards. 3 silver coins landed at the sheriff's feet. Done, she said. He blinked. You don't want to see their faces first? Calla turned once toward the crowd. Y'all already did. No one laughed this time. She took the children by the hands, one on each side, and walked back toward her horse. The little girl stumbled once, but Calla didn't look down. Just slowed. The boy held onto her duster like it was the only thing in the world not trying to trade him. Behind them, Esther Vaughn from the general store whispered too loudly, "She don't even got a man. What she want with 2 ghosts?" Calla didn't answer. But as she hoisted the children onto the mare, one hand under each leg like she'd done it before, a few faces in the crowd softened. Just barely. The sheriff pocketed the coins and turned away. Calla walked beside the horse the whole way home. They didn't speak. The prairie wind picked up by the time they reached her land. Fence half mended, house leaning a bit west, barn door open like a crooked mouth. She lifted the boy down first. Then the girl. Set them on their feet like seedlings. She didn't ask them their names. Didn't ask why they never removed the sacks. Instead, she pointed to the porch. The children hesitated, then climbed the steps. Inside, it smelled of iron stove smoke and wild sage. She scooped water from the barrel near the back wall and filled a tin basin on the floor. Then she set down 2 folded shirts, a soft gray blanket, and a comb with 2 missing teeth. She nodded toward the corner. "You'll be safe there." The boy tilted his head. Not enough to see out of the sack, but enough to understand. Calla stepped outside to chop kindling. The sun dipped, spilling orange over the dry grass. She split wood until her shoulders burned, Not because she needed the fire, but because she needed the noise. She hadn't touched the rocking chair since the winter her sister bled out in it. That night, she sat in it again for the first time. A creak of the porch told her they'd come out. She didn't look, but she heard them settle. A bowl of beans sat untouched at their feet. The boy was humming. Not loud. Just enough to keep the dark from pressing too close. Later, when the moon rose like a faded coin, Calla tucked the gray blanket around their thin shoulders. She didn't speak. Just tucked. They didn't thank her. The next morning, she found the sacks folded on the porch rail. No words. Just wind. She didn't smile. But her eyes softened. She fed them oatmeal with honey, and neither flinched. Afterward, she showed them the barn. Her gelding snorted gently when Birdie reached to touch his nose. The boy stayed back, watching everything. She placed their small palms against the mare's warm belly. Brush this way. Always with the grain. They learned without words. Fast. In town, people talked louder now. Said she'd lost her mind. That orphans were bad luck. That no good could come from ghosts with no name. Deputy Harland stopped her near the water trough a week later. Hat in hand. You sure about this, Calla? She looked past him. Sure enough. He hesitated. Some think they're runaways. That maybe they seen things. That maybe you. She met his eyes. If they were yours, you'd have taken them home. He flinched, just slightly. Back at the ranch, the girl was stacking smooth stones by the porch. The boy was drawing in dirt with a stick, tracing what might have been a house. That night, the wind stirred hard again. Calla bolted upright in the dark. The girl was whimpering. Not loud, just enough to break something in the air. Calla lit the lamp and stepped barefoot onto the floor. The boards creaked. The girl froze. Calla knelt slowly. You're safe, she whispered. You don't owe me anything. The girl didn't speak. Just reached, small fingers pressing lightly against Calla's wrist. A scar ran across it, jagged. The girl traced it once, then crawled into Calla's lap and wept. The boy watched from the shadows, fists clenched. But he didn't stop her. He just whispered, hoarse and low, "Don't leave us on a platform again." Calla closed her eyes. I didn't leave myself either, she said. In the stillness that followed, something changed. Not loud. Not sudden. Just a shift. A corner of silence unfolded and let them in. By the second morning, the girl no longer flinched when the rooster cried. Calla watched from the kitchen doorway, holding a chipped mug in both hands. The siblings sat together on the porch step, legs tucked under them, faces lifted toward the sky like they just remembered it belonged to them too. The girl, Birdie, though Calla hadn't said it aloud, wore the same yellow dress, now washed and drying softer in the sun. The boy, silent and lean, had found a piece of twine and twisted it into a bracelet for his wrist. Neither child asked for anything. They never had. That quiet was the hardest part. Calla cooked more than she ever ate. She laid out food for three, and the only time they hesitated was when she reached for a plate too fast or let a cupboard door slam. On the fourth evening, they began setting the table before she could ask. The boy wiped each tin plate with the edge of his shirt. The girl climbed onto a stool to ladle beans without spilling. When one slipped and landed on the wood floor with a soft splat, she froze, eyes wide. Calla didn't raise her voice. She just knelt, wiped it clean, and said, "It happens." The girl blinked. Slowly, as if the world had rewritten its rules. After supper, Calla took them out behind the barn. A large copper washtub sat beneath a willow with fading leaves. She filled it with warm water and lavender soap shavings she'd been hoarding since spring. The scent curled into the air like memory. She didn't force them. Just said, "It's yours if you want it." The girl stepped in first. Her shoulders tensed as she lowered herself, like the water might bite. But it didn't. She let out a tiny gasp, then cupped her hands and dribbled a line of bubbles onto the boy's foot. He glared. She giggled. It was the first sound of childhood Calla had heard from them. That night, After their hair dried in the fire's warmth, she handed each a flannel shirt. Too big, sleeves rolled. They curled like kittens on the braided rug and fell asleep before the fire even crackled to its low sigh. She sat near the hearth long after, watching, wondering what kind of grief turns a child into a statue, wondering what she was supposed to be to them now. She didn't want to be their mother. She didn't believe she had it in her. But when the wind rattled the windowpane, both children stirred and rolled toward her direction. Their faces, for the first time, looked peaceful. The next morning, a bird had died outside the coop. Its wing lay snapped at the joint, body curled in straw. The boy saw it first. He crouched beside it, lips pressed shut. Then, with surprising gentleness, he picked it up in both hands and brought it to Calla. She looked at the broken thing and then at him. He didn't ask her to fix it. He just wanted her to see it had mattered. They buried it beneath the tree where the washtub sat. The girl placed one white stone on top of the dirt. The boy didn't cry. Later, while Calla mended a fence post, she found the boy watching her from a hill of dry grass. His arms were crossed. Not hostile, just cautious, as if trying to measure if she was the type of adult who stayed. She straightened. "You know how to tie twine?" He nodded once. She held out the end of the rope. "Come on then." He came. They fixed the top rail in silence, the way two people do when speaking might break something tender between them. In town, word had spread faster than milk soured in July. At the general store, Esther Vaughn narrowed her eyes when Calla stepped inside. "Didn't expect to see you back so soon," she said, dragging out the words like they had thorns. Calla set down flour, sugar, and 2 bars of lye soap. "Didn't expect I'd need so much." Esther leaned forward. Raising someone else's trouble is still trouble. Children don't lose their blood ties just 'cause you cover 'em with flannel. Calla didn't respond, but she saw Deputy Harland on the other side of the store, pausing with a tin of coffee in his hand. He hadn't spoken to her since the auction. Now, his gaze lingered a beat too long before drifting away. Outside, Calla loaded her wagon. Esther watched from behind the window, and Calla wondered how many words a person could swallow before they started to choke. That night, she found a flower on her porch. A single prairie bloom. Yellow, like Bertie's dress. The children said nothing about it. But the next morning, Bertie had a bloom braided into her hair. The boy didn't ask for one. But Calla left another on the table beside his plate. They worked the land together. They swept the floor. They carried eggs from the coop, one in each palm like treasures. The girl sang softly to herself now. Her voice trailed behind her like ribbon. The boy carved a stick into the shape of a horse and gave it to Calla without explanation. She set it on the mantel without a word. They didn't call her Mama. Didn't call her anything. But when she came home later than usual one day, the boy met her at the gate, arms crossed like a sentry. The girl ran to her, slipping once in the dirt, then catching herself. They'd missed her. That was all. Then came the knock. Not a sheriff's knock. Not even one that wanted a favor. Just a dry, cautious rapping at the door, 3 times. Calla opened it to see Deputy Harland, hat in hand again. He didn't step forward. Just nodded toward the porch bench. "Mind if I sit?" She stepped aside. The children were inside, playing checkers with mismatched buttons. Harland cleared his throat. "Town's stirring." Calla waited. "They're saying you never registered the children. That maybe they came from Sutter's Creek. Couple gone missing 2 weeks back." Calla's face stayed unreadable. Harland rubbed the brim of his hat. "I'm not saying they're wrong. But I'm not saying they're right either. I just thought, you ought to know the mood's changing. Let it." He studied her. "What are they to you?" Calla folded her arms. "What were you to me once?" He looked away, jaw tightening. "That's not fair." "No," she said. "It isn't." He stood slowly. "Folks are afraid of things they can't name, Calla." She looked toward the window. Bertie had paused her game, watching them from the firelight. Her eyes held a question, one Calla wasn't ready to answer. "Maybe I am too," she whispered. Harlan stepped down the porch steps, boots thudding soft. Before he reached his horse, he turned. "You know they'll come for them, if they can't prove they're yours." Calla didn't blink. "They ain't objects," she said. "No. But this town don't see people that way." When she went inside, the children pretended they hadn't been listening. But Birdie crawled into her lap and the boy took the poker and stirred the fire himself, as if guarding the only warmth they had left. Outside, the wind finally picked up. The sky was the color of cold ash the morning Calla saw boot prints along her fence line. Not her own, not the boys'. These were heavier. Wider gait. A man's stride. They circled the coop, paused at the trough, then turned back toward the main gate like someone had thought twice but not soon enough. She didn't tell the children. Instead, she cooked a little extra, kept the shotgun nearer, and watched the horizon with a kind of stillness she hadn't needed in years. That day, Birdie made a necklace out of buttons and string. She looped it over Calla's neck without asking, then ran off with a laugh like a caught breeze. The boy stayed behind, his brow furrowed. "You gonna keep us?" he asked, not looking up. Calla lowered her hands from the wash she'd been hanging. "You think I bought you just to give you back?" He picked at a knot in the clothesline. "Others did." Calla swallowed something bitter. "Well, I'm not others." He didn't reply. But that evening, he placed a stone beside her boots. Smooth, round, sun-warmed. Not a gift, more like a marker. She left it there. Town had grown meaner. At the mercantile, whispers turned to stares. Stares into murmured curses. The price of feed rose by 2 bits. Then 3. The barrel of flour Esther fetched for Calla had a small tear in the side. "Might have ripped on the wagon," she said with a smile too tight for her face. Calla said nothing. Just paid, loaded, and left. Outside, Harlan met her at the hitching post. "They're saying you're hiding something," he said, jaw stiff. "That you've gone soft in the head. Taking in strays with no name. They've got a petition now. Some want the law to remove the children till it's sorted." Calla looked past him. "They never started soft with me. Don't expect them to end that way either." Harlan looked tired. "Calla." "You of all people," she said, quiet and hard, "should understand what it means to be left behind and not labeled right." He winced. "You gonna sign it?" He shook his head once. "Doesn't matter. It's growing." When she got home, the front door was open. She froze. No voices. No movement. Just the long hush of wood breathing in heat. She dropped the feed sack and stepped through the doorway with a hand on her belt knife. In the kitchen sat the boy, blood on his lip, arms around Birdie's shoulders. A man stood by the hearth. He wore traveling boots and a patched coat, beard short but ragged, eyes red from dust and smoke. A stranger, but not to the children. "They're mine," he said. Calla stepped forward, heart a furnace. "They said someone took him," he went on. "Found out they was here." Birdie whimpered. The boy's fingers tightened. "You sellin' 'em back?" the man asked, eyes narrowing. Calla didn't flinch. "You come here to buy children or steal them?" He spat into the fire. "They ain't yours. They ain't anyone's. They're cursed. Left their mama to die. Should have left 'em for the birds." Before she could speak, the boy rose. He walked past Calla, past the man, and without a word, he kicked the bucket of firewood hard against the man's shin. The man yelped and reeled back. "Don't touch her," the boy said. "Don't touch my sister." The man lunged forward, but Calla was faster. She raised the shotgun she'd leaned against the wall the night before. "Get off my land," she said. He stilled. "You can walk out, or you can be carried. Choose." For a long second, he didn't move. Then he backed toward the door, muttering about witch women and devil spawn. Calla followed him to the gate and didn't lower the gun until he was a shadow on the horizon. She turned back and found the children standing in the doorway, small and solemn. Birdie reached up and touched the button necklace still around Calla's neck. "I gave it to you," she whispered, eyes filling. Calla crouched and cupped Birdie's cheeks in both hands. "You did." The boy didn't cry, but when she held out her arm, he walked straight into it. That night, none of them slept early. They made a fire outside and sat beneath the stars. Calla brought out apples, carved into curls, handed one to each child. They didn't eat right away, just stared into the flames like people who'd been through a storm they couldn't name. Birdie spoke first. "He used to lock us in the shed. Said we weren't good for nothin', but hushin'." The boy's hand tightened around his apple. Calla didn't interrupt. "He told people we were dead, then tried to trade us for whiskey." The boy whispered, "We walked 3 days after. Then someone put us in a wagon. That's all I remember." Calla breathed deep, slow. "You remember what kindness feels like?" Neither answered. She broke her apple in half and gave her piece to Birdie. The girl bit into it like it was a feast. From that night, something shifted. The boy, who still hadn't told her his name, began to rise early. Feed the hens. Sweep the porch. He tied knots the way she showed him. Not perfect, but steady. Birdie took to humming more, braiding weeds into crowns, leaving them on fence posts like tiny offerings. Calla caught herself smiling when she didn't mean to. One morning, the boy sat beside her on the porch, legs swinging. "You think we'll always be safe here?" Calla didn't lie. "I'll make sure of it." He nodded. "Then I'll make sure the fence stays fixed." He rose, picked up a hammer, and walked off like it was his land too. That evening, thunder rumbled beyond the hills, far off but warning. Calla gathered the children close. "Might rain," Birdie whispered. "Will it flood?" "No, not here." Calla sat beside the fire while they slept, staring at the door. She wasn't afraid of the man coming back. Not truly. But fear had a way of settling in your bones long after the danger left. The next day, the town sent notice. A printed paper tacked to her gatepost. Summons. For Calla May Dalton, to appear before the township, on claims of illegal harboring of unidentified minors. Calla stared at the ink until it blurred. When she returned to the house, Birdie was drawing a sun on the floorboards with charcoal. The boy was fixing the saddle buckle. Neither knew yet. Calla folded the paper in half and placed it beneath the stove. It caught fire fast. That night, while the wind picked up and the chimney moaned, the boy placed something on the mantel. Not a carving this time. A name, etched into wood. Cole. He didn't say it was his. Didn't say anything. Calla touched the edge of the letters. Rough, but legible. Then looked to him. "Thank you." Cole nodded once. And from behind her, Birdie whispered, "You can call me that too." Calla turned. "Birdie." The girl smiled, shy and brave at once. "That's what Mama called me." Before she went quiet, Calla knelt and pulled them both close. No declarations. No grand speeches. Just a soft breath between hearts and the crackle of fire warming 3 bodies that had almost gone cold. The sky was still when they came. No wind. No clouds. Just a strange stillness that pressed on the earth like the world was holding its breath. Calla had known they'd arrive soon. Knew from the way Harland had avoided her eyes at the well last week. Knew from how the town had grown quieter when she walked through it, not louder. The kind of quiet that meant verdicts had already been whispered behind doors. She'd seen the dust first, rising from the north road like smoke from a small fire. By the time the horses came into view, 3 riders, 2 wagons, and the sheriff in front, Cole had already gathered Birdie and stood waiting on the porch with her small hand tucked in his. Calla didn't tell them to go inside. Didn't lie. She just stepped out in front of them, hat low, hands steady. The sheriff dismounted with a grunt. "Miss Dalton." Calla nodded. He held up a rolled paper. "Summons been sent. You didn't come. I didn't sign a contract with this town." He ignored that. We got legal orders now. Kids with no bloodkin, no official guardian. Judge signed off. We're to collect M, bring M to the county home. Safe place. Proper oversight. Bertie gripped Cole's hand tighter. Calla's voice didn't raise. And after that? The sheriff blinked. What happens to them next? She pressed. Same thing that happened before someone bought them for $3 on a platform? You don't know that, he said. I know they don't beg for bread anymore. A murmur came from one of the wagon men. Ain't up to us. Town says they don't belong to you. Calla stepped off the porch. She wasn't tall, wasn't loud, but she moved like someone who knew what silence could protect. I didn't keep them because I wanted to own something, she said. I kept them because no one else did. Sheriff folded his arms. You got no papers, no names, not even a marriage license to your own damn name. You got no man to vouch, no birth certificates to file. Is that what makes someone real? She asked. A man and a paper? You're interfering with law. Calla's eyes narrowed. So are you. Cole took a step forward, chin lifted. You're not taking us. His voice cracked, but the strength behind it didn't. Bertie stood beside him, yellow dress faded but clean, her shoes scuffed but laced tight. We already got a home, she whispered. The sheriff looked uncomfortable. They're just children. They are, Calla agreed. And they've survived more than most grown men I've met. He sighed, gestured to the two men behind. I don't want to force this. Calla stepped back toward the porch. Then don't. The men climbed down. Cole stood firm. So did Bertie. Calla placed a hand on each shoulder. You'll have to drag all three of us then, she said, low and calm. And after that, you'll have to look every soul in this town in the eye and tell them they watched it happen again. The sheriff's jaw tensed. You're making a scene. Good, she said. Let them remember it. One of the men hesitated. They ain't kicking, Sheriff. They're just standing there. You want to carry a child who don't cry anymore? Calla asked. Want to explain why she stopped talking last time? A silence fell. A horse stomped. A hawk called from somewhere above. Then a voice broke through the dust. Deputy Harland. He rode up slow, coat open, rifle slung. He didn't speak right away. Just looked at the children. Then at Calla. He dismounted. I've known Calla since we were 10, he said, voice steady. She doesn't lie. Doesn't cheat. Doesn't need a piece of paper to know what's right. The sheriff turned. Jed. Harland stepped closer. I've seen men beat their kids and still get custody. I've seen drunks bring in bloodied wives and walk home free. But I never saw anyone kneel and cover a stranger's child from the wind, just 'cause she looked cold. He looked at the sheriff. You drag those kids off this land, you'll answer for it. Not just to law, to something older. Calla's eyes met his. Something unspoken passed between them. The sheriff looked from Calla to Harland to the children, then back at the paper in his hand. He sighed. I ain't gonna shoot a woman in front of 2 kids, he muttered. But I won't be the last man who comes. He tossed the summons into the dirt. Far as I'm concerned, they're still ghosts. You want 'em to stay, make 'em real. The wagons turned. The dust swallowed them. Harland stayed. Calla sat on the porch steps once the noise faded. Bertie crawled into her lap. Cole sat beside her, not touching, but close. Harland stood for a while in the yard, watching. Won't always be me at the gate, he said quietly. I know. You got a plan? Calla looked down at Bertie's hair. I got 2. Harland smiled faintly. Town'll never stop talking. Calla finally met his eyes. Let them. He nodded, tipped his hat, and rode away. Later, as stars bled into the dark, Calla brought out a tin box from beneath the floorboards. It had once held her father's knife, a photograph, and the deed to a land no one wanted. Now, it held 2 folded pieces of paper. One, blank, waiting for the names the children would choose to write. The other, an application for legal guardianship. Left unsigned. She placed the tin on the table. Birdie walked in, barefoot, rubbing her eyes. "You gonna make us real now?" she asked softly. Calla knelt, pulled her close. "You already are." Cole came in next, holding a stick with feathers tied at the end. He set it beside the wood carving on the mantel, like he was building an altar to something unspoken. Calla stood between them, one hand on each back. "Tomorrow," she said, "we'll ride into town. Get you names in ink. Maybe even let someone take our photograph." Birdie giggled. "With ribbons?" Calla smiled. "With whatever you want." Cole didn't speak, but he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small heart carved from bark. Held it out with both hands. "For you," he said. Calla took it, and in that moment, the past didn't vanish, but it stopped holding their throats so tight. Later that night, when all was quiet and the stars had made peace with the dark, Calla sat on the porch alone. She ran her fingers over the wood grain of the heart, then placed it beside the stones the children had gifted before. The porch was lined now with offerings. Not flowers. Not prayers. Just bits of truth. They weren't family by blood. But family had never been about that. Family was who you stood in front of when no one else would. Who you let sleep near your fire, even when your own heart still trembled from long nights alone. Family was what you built in silence, one gesture at a time. Behind her, 2 small breaths rose and fell beneath blankets. Calla rocked slowly, the chair creaking in time with the wind. And when she closed her eyes, she whispered, not to herself, but to the girl who once lived in her skin. "You kept them safe. You didn't turn away." Which city are you watching our video from? Please leave a comment. Please subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you.